All right, welcome back, True Seeker. It is Friday, April 11th, 2025. Earlier this week on April 8th, one of the top stories was the tragedy that happened in the Dominican Republic, the Jet Set nightclub collapsing and killing, as of today, at least 218 people, injuring many more. Very famous singer was in the club performing, former MLB stars, the sister of an even bigger MLB star. Again, a lot of the top headlines in the U.S. were that Octavio Dotel, former longtime MLB pitcher, was killed in the collapse, along with the sister of Nelson Cruz. And funny enough, Dotel and Nelson Cruz played against each other in the 2011 World Series. 11's a big theme with this current MLB season, which just got underway. From May 16th to 18th, the MLB is doing something new. It's called Rivalry Weekend, and they have 11 rivalry matchups going for that weekend. This year will be the 121st World Series. Of course, 121 has a square root of 11. And with regards to the Dominican Republic, the biggest star in baseball from the DR is Juan Soto, who went from the Yankees to the Mets in the offseason, transitioning between the two New York teams, where New York is the 11th state in order of statehood. And Juan Soto has recently spoken out about the tragedy that just occurred because, again, that is his town where it happened. And take a look at this. The headlines broke the night officially before Juan Soto got the record MLB contract for the Mets. The headlines were out December 8th. Juan Soto in the hot tub celebrating the $765 million contract. So notice that was December 8th, exactly 4 months before the collapse would happen. And what's interesting is from December 8th until the tragedy in his hometown, the DR, it was 121 days later. And of course, again, the 121st World Series upcoming. In the practice of coding numbers into words, which comes from Kabbalah. Again, look into this, Gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words. There's a dark half of this study. Obviously, we're talking about the dark half here. Blood sacrifice equates to 121. And if you're new here, another number we talk about all the time with these demented rituals is 201. This ritual happened 201 days before his upcoming 27th birthday. Of course, 27, very special number to the MLB, which equals 27. He just left the Yankees, who remained on 27 World Series wins, losing to the Dodgers by the numbers. Something we were all over last year, where we had the Dodgers to win it all in spring training. And if you look, you'll see the Dodgers have now won 120 postseason games since moving to LA as they win the 120th World Series. That's literally how scripted these things are. But yeah, I want to go back down memory lane and talk a little bit more about Octavio Dotel dying in light of the Juan Soto parallel, because Dotel was drafted into the MLB by the New York Mets, who Soto now plays for. And a lot of MLB stars start at a very young age. If you start at age 25, you're a little bit old for the MLB. Octavio Dotel joined the MLB at age 25, and now he dies tragically in 2025. But look at this. I want to go back over all these points here. So initially, it started at least 44 dead, as we know. 44 is the number associated with killing and destruction. The count's now up to at least 218 dead, and there's something known as English gematria, and that's where death does equate to 218, not an arbitrary number. But yeah, if you're new here, the nightclub collapsed on 4/8. There are 4 base ciphers of the English language: the alphabetic order, the reverse alphabetic order, and both orders with numerology applied. You can see that nightclub does equate to 48, like how the roof came down on April 8th, 4/8. And again, they had to point out that Dotel was 51 years old, and we're going to see why that's so interesting. Notice the nightclub jet set where this happened equates to 79, 83, and 38 like murder. We're going to come back to that. The 83 stands out in a big way because Dotel, in his debut season with the Mets, his record was 8-3. In Dotel's first season, 8-3. He was then sent to Houston, where he made a name for himself with the Houston Astros. And remember, the tragedy just happened the night after Houston was eliminated in the college basketball championship. But Dotel, 51 years old. Notice how his name equates to 51. Houston Astros also equates to 51. New York Mets, the team that drafted him, the team that Soto now plays for, equals 51. Mets alone also equals 51. And you just saw the Mets fall to 5-1 at home in their last home game. So the Mets began this season 5-1 at home, days after the death of Dotel. And again, he died 134 days after his birthday. That's interesting because that number is associated with the destruction of buildings through the holiday that is important to the Jewish people, Tisha B'Av, which equals 134. The English translation of Tisha B'Av is 9th of Av, which equals 134. The last World Series that happened before 9/11, which has a lot of 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av connections, was the Subway Series between the Mets and the Yankees. And did you notice how Tisha B'Av also equates to 82 and 28? Again, that's interesting because this year it falls on August 2nd, which can be written 8-2 or 2-8, and goes into August 3rd, 8-3. Like Dotel began the year 8-3 or began his career with the Mets 8-3. And also the night of his death, the famous singer Ruby Herrera, he was performing, and his birthday is March 8th, which can be written 3-8 or 8-3. But yeah, Tisha B'Av this year will fall on August 2nd and August 3rd, 8-3, and that is a weekend. Pay attention what happens with these teams, the records they hit. It could be a dead-on clue who's bound for the World Series. And even right now with the 121st World Series and what's happened here in Juan Soto's hometown, these are the kind of things year after year that lead to teams being in the big game or at least participating in the NL pennant, being on the doorstep of the World Series. Every year you see these ritual sacrifices connected to teams in the championship, teams on the cusp of the championship, year after year, the same old things. And again, to me, I'm amazed that everybody doesn't know about how obvious the deaths and the championships are, because they usually are really obvious. You look at who just died in Houston en route to them making it to the March Madness championship, from George Foreman to the 4 sheriffs in 6 weeks. Can you guys remember the days before the World Series last year? Fernando Valenzuela and Rudy May dead in consecutive days when they pitched against each other in the last World Series between the Dodgers and the Yankees. The hip-hop DJ producer who's known for wearing the Yankees cap, dead right before the game. Other names I'm forgetting, but just the same stuff year after year, clockwork. It'll happen early in the season. It'll happen throughout the season. It'll be right in your face right as the game gets there. But yeah, year of the 121st World Series, biggest star from the DR. This tragedy comes 121 days after he celebrates his signing with the New York Mets, who again drafted Octavio Dotel, who went 8-3 in his debut season. And again, him and Nelson Cruz faced each other in the 2011 World Series. In that World Series, the Cardinals got their 11th World Series win in 2011, beating Texas, and they also won 11 games in that postseason to do it. But you just got to say, what are the odds that Nelson Cruz, who played for the Rangers, who lost in that World Series, that his sister would die in it next to Octavio Dotel, and those being top names at the top of the death tally, right as the MLB season's getting underway? Again, for anyone who would ask how they would do this, my first thought would be perhaps an energy weapon or some other kind of rigged explosive. But no doubt this was not an accident. This is just par for the course, rig sports, ritual sacrifice, redundant patterns. And I'm pretty sure when I mentioned in the first video, without even having the piece on Juan Soto, I'm pretty sure I brought up how this will be the year of the 121st World Series and blood sacrifices 121. So, yeah. Again, here's the article. Tragedy at Jet Set. Juan Soto breaks silence and sends condolences to victims. The tragedy that occurred at the Jet Set nightclub located in Santo Domingo has left the country in shock. In the early hours of the morning, the roof of the famous nightclub collapsed during a concert, claiming the lives of at least 218 people, including 2 former Major League Baseball players, Octavio Dotel and Tony Blanco. Tony Blanco didn't play that long in the MLB, but he played for the team that Soto made his name on. Tony Blanco used to be on the Nationals. He wore 28, kind of like how that Tisha Bob's going to fall on a date that can be written 2-8. But yeah, he didn't have a long career. He played in 56 games, Washington, D.C., 56. And that was pre-Juan Soto. Juan Soto was just a kid back then. He wasn't in the MLB yet. Juan Soto would have been 6 years old back then. He died 149 days after his birthday. It's interesting. That's a big Skull and Bones number. Skull and Bones was all over when the Nationals beat the Astros in the World Series, and we were all over it before any of it happened. We had the Nationals to beat the Astros in Game 7 of the World Series before the postseason even began, understanding these secret societies, the death, the ritualism. If you go back and look, the Nationals had to sweep the Indians to get into the postseason that year, and they did. And if you go back and look, you'll see that they got their 48th win at home on a 48-date numerology over Cleveland, their 49th win the next day on a 49-date numerology, and their 50th home win on a 50-date, and that got them into the postseason. The game on September 27th, Dave Martinez, the manager of the Nationals, he stayed on 149 losses in his 322nd career game. Skull and Bones is known as Order 322. And that was the year after Papa Bush had died, the Skull and Bones member number 41, who's born on the day, leaving 202 days left in the year, who has a son born on 7/6, who became the 43rd president, like Skull and Bones at Yale. But anyway, the point I'm making is 149 was a big number in that ritual. Dave Martinez stayed on 149 losses going into that postseason. And so I don't think it's an accident that he's dead 149 days after his 43rd birthday. Like I just said, Yale 43, Skull and Bones 149. It's at Yale. And remember, Skull and Bones is known as the Brotherhood of Death. And for the record, that also equals 83, as well as 97, the 25th prime. But again, Jet Set also 83, like Murder's 83, like Tisha Bob falls on 83. Like we've talked about that number a gazillion times in Ritualistic Death. And if you guys forgot too, Dave Martinez, his name equals 138, just like Nationals equals 138, just like Federal equals 138, just like Donald Trump equals 138, just like how the Nationals won the World Series that year 138 days after Trump's birthday. Trump took office with the 115th Congress. They won the 115th World Series. They literally threw 159 pitches in the deciding game. That same night, the Rockets beat the Washington, D.C. basketball team with 159 points. We had a nice little parlay there with those two things. Nationals were a huge payout. They were major underdogs in games 6 and 7 where they came back. But again, I go back down memory lane because and the reason I remember these things is because we know these numbers. We talk about them all the time. We were talking about years before it happened. It's knowing how these patterns come together over and over, which also helps you out with the rig games and the futures. But the same numbers will show up in the ritualistic deaths. So anyway, at least 218 people, including 2 former Major League Baseball players, Octavio Dotel and Tony Blanco. The terrible event has shocked both the local and international community, especially those close to the baseball world. Juan Soto, a renowned Major League Baseball player, reacted quickly to this tragedy with an emotional message on his Instagram account. The young player, who has always been a role model for his country, expressed his sorrow as he joined the suffering of the families affected by the loss. With a broken heart, I join the pain of the families of our country for the tragedy that occurred in Jet Set, said Soto, highlighting the magnitude of the tragedy and how it affects the whole nation. They got this little thing down here about how much money Juan Soto makes in 37 seconds, his contract, $1,244. You know what I want to do real quick? I want to just go back and look here at what the Mets had done. April 7th was the night before the collapse. The Mets won versus the Marlins 2-0. And if you check our notes from that day, okay, I know this is the day where we nailed the score. We thought the Mets were going to win this game by 2 runs. The Mets became plus 13 in scoring on a Monday, and the Marlins fell to negative 11. New York's the 11th state, and it was an 11-date numerology. Yeah, we had that one dead on, the Mets to win by 2. But you see how the Mets became 7-3? This is right before the collapse happens, right? Because it happened in the middle of the night, early the morning, April 8th. Sacrifices 73, ritual sacrifices 73. So the Mets had become 7-3. And then the Mets won the next game as well to become 8-3. So on the day of the collapse, the Mets became 8-3. 8-3. Again, Dotel made his debut with the Mets and went 8-3 as a pitcher. Jet set 83. Tishabov ends on 8-3 this year. And then the next day they lost and fell to 5-1 at home. Just talking about how Dotel was 51 years old. Again, his name 51. New York Mets 51. Houston Astros 51, who they sent him to. Hold on. They didn't play the Mets. And just playing the Marlins too, you know, you can't get much closer to the DR than Miami, can you? You can't. Miami's as close. So the Mets are playing the team that geographically is closest to the DR. So think about that too. I want to think about the scoring in the series. Okay, 2-0. Then they won 10-5, so they were up 12-5 in scoring. And then they lost 0-5. So the scoring was 12-10 for the series. 12-10. 1-2-1-0. It has that 1-2-1 in it. 121st World Series. Tragedy 121 days after the contract's announced. Yeah, that's definitely part of it. Here, the contract, again, the news broke December 8th. It was officially signed December 9th on 12-9. Notice how New York Mets is also 129. The 12th, Mets 12. It was 45 days after Soto's birthday, Major League 45. They do it while he's age 26, a magic number in sports. Yankees 26, who he came over from like ball game and athlete. He switched teams on a date with 65 numerology, New York Yankees. But yeah, go figure that the Mets became 8-3 the same day the tragedy happens at the Jet set. And this is what we say, just news and sports, how it's all rigged and connected. It's all scripted together. And again, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how people deny this. People who are on the Patreon taking advantage of the rigged baseball season and the start we're off to this year, they're not denying it. They're patting their pockets. And again, that's not what it's about at the end of the day. At the end of the day, it's really about exposing how evil this stuff is and why nobody should be involved in it. But yeah, again, RIP to the people who were in this club who this happened to. Again, it's a reminder, they really do kill people for these sports leagues. So we'll leave it there for now. True Seeker. Got to go pick up Sweet Girl. Hope the rest of you guys have a good rest of your day. If anything big happens, I'll be sure to upload a video. And next week, I do intend to get the new podcast going. I got almost all the equipment I need. So we'll see if we can revive this channel or if we need to start an all-out new one. And I am thinking about actually, no matter what, starting the new channel as well, because I do think they have done something in this channel and make sure it gets no views. I've never had a channel where I produced well over 1,000 videos and not a single video ever got any views. It just never happened. Like I said, when we came back in 2018, within 3 months, we had 50 videos that had gotten better than 500,000 views. And now I have like hardly any videos that have even reached 10K. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I know they've changed the game on YouTube, but you would have thought at least one of these videos would have snuck out and got some views. So we're going to try something out, like a new name, and get into video editing a little bit. All right, you guys, thanks again. Appreciate everyone who shares the work, supports the work. Have a good rest of your day, and until next time.